Thank you so much for your questions. This is a reply to Vin, who's asked me, what do we do with a pathological narcissist and how do we cope with them as therapists? And what is it? What does it mean? Why is somebody a pathological narcissist? Now, I want to explain the concept of narcissism. This is extremely difficult to work with in therapy, and nobody will ever knock at your door and say, "Good afternoon, I'm a pathological narcissist and I want you to help me." Because part of being a pathological narcissist is to not acknowledge that you are one. And what happens is that maybe one day something goes very wrong in their lives and they hit themselves against reality and hurt themselves enormously. Sometimes they lose everything they love. Sometimes they're ostracized by the people they love. Sometimes they get very sick because they're going completely against nature. And that's when your narcissist will knock at your door and say, "Help me." Now, we have to be especially nice to these people because they are extremely fragile and they pretend to be the complete opposite. Why are they doing what they do? At some point of their lives, they were confronted with death and limitations and vulnerability. And it just didn't come at the right time, you know. It came at the very wrong time and it scared them to death. It terrified them. They couldn't cope. So they constructed a very, very strong defense against it. And this is the defense they constructed. To begin with, they used a dictator to discriminate what is good, what is bad, what is pleasing, what is unpleasant. And this dictator works really, really hard in their lives to keep the bad things out and the good things in. The other thing is that the dictator also dominates admiration and checks that admiration does its job every day. So they have a kind of ministry of propaganda telling them how wonderful they are every day, and they actually employ a number of people and jobs around them to implement this constant worshipping that they need to keep themselves safe, to keep themselves immortal, unquestionable and fabulous. And then they use an enormous amount of strength to implement this. They can even bully, they can be very nasty. So this is a pathological narcissist. And what do they crown here? Well, they crown an ideal self. And they actually use this wonderful ring. If you check it out, it's the ring, the Elphic ring. And this ring crowns them as fabulous. Now you can see this is very unstable, this whole situation. So it requires an enormous amount of energy. And they're not exactly comfortable. They can be thrilled, but behind that wonderful feeling, there is a kind of a terrifying other world. And it's a bit like in the Middle Ages when people thought that the earth was flat and you could fall off the edges. That's a bit the sort of world they live in. So they're going to defend this position very, very strongly. They can be selfish, they can be liars, they can invent an enormous amount of stories about themselves. They're very disconsiderate. If they're considerate, it's just pretending to be considerate because they consider that they want to be considerate people. It's a show, it's not real. So when your narcissistic person comes to visit you in your consulting room, they're either very sick or they've had an accident with life, and it's a major accident with life. And they want you to defend them against frustration, limitations, difficulties, and finally the concept of being mortal and death. Now, how do you help a person like this? It's extremely difficult, very dodgy. You can get the person sick, you can get the person suicidal, you can get the person very, very aggressive if you don't do the right timing. So you need to do this with a great supervisor, a fabulous supervisor, somebody with lots and lots of experience. If you're a therapist, don't try this at home, right? Try it with great supervision. And the other thing is, basically what you're doing during the therapy is you're taking this person and making friends with death, making friends with limitations, making friends with vulnerability. And instead of making this our enemy, we make it an ally. Now, how on earth do I make friends with death? Death is fabulous because it means that I'm not going to have to live forever, which is quite exhausting. I don't have to keep up my act forever, which is such a relief. The other thing about death is it's giving contrast so that I can value life. It's also making me equal to everybody else. I'm not an immortal, I'm just like you and the other person, so I start feeling accompanied. So actually death is not so bad. It also means that I only have to be as good as my generation. I don't have to continue to learn computer science for the next 300 years, which is quite exhausting for me, for instance. So actually this is not such a bad idea. Death is getting out of this world and just relaxing also. So I don't have to be the best at everything. I don't have to be perfect all the time. And it's a very soothing, a very, very soothing experience. But you don't tell this to your narcissist. Please don't. They won't believe you. They'll think you're mediocre. They'll despise you. So what do you have to offer them? You have to offer them an ideal therapist. And very slowly, you are, by the way, much stronger than your narcissist. Huh? Very slowly, you start showing this person the value of vulnerability. Very slowly, very slowly. You have to build a great relationship with this person. And slowly, 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 you start disillusioning them. And they will start relaxing because this is very expensive to maintain. It's very costly and quite exhausting. And well, good luck to you. Get yourself a great supervisor. And remember, this is done slowly and carefully. There are dangers of psychosomatic reactions, and there are danger of aggressive reactions towards themselves and towards others. Thumbs up, patience, trust, and thank you for your question.